The streets of Ashridge were never quiet, not even in winter. Snow had fallen earlier that morning, but the city had already turned it into slush, smeared gray across pavement by passing feet and impatient wheels. Horns blared, muffled under wool scarves and diesel fumes. The crosswalks blinked like tired eyes. Everyone was in a hurry. Everyone had somewhere to be. No one looked down. At the edge of Maple and 14th, half shielded by a graffiti-stained alley wall, a German shepherd curled tight into himself. Ribs jutted out beneath matted fur. His paws were red and raw from too many nights on cold concrete. One ear drooped awkwardly. The other twitched any time footsteps neared too close. His tail was still. His eyes, barely open, watched the ground more than the world. He had been there since dawn, or maybe longer. People passed him like he was part of the bricks. Some stepped around him without hesitation. Others glanced, winced, and looked away. A few teenagers laughed as they passed. One snapped a photo with her phone and called him "Zombie Dog" before tossing an empty soda can near his side. It bounced off the sidewalk and clinked toward the gutter. He didn't flinch. The world moved on. He stayed. A busker played guitar across the street, his voice lost under city noise. A delivery man cursed as his dolly tipped. A man in a suit shouted into his phone, never breaking stride. A woman pushed a stroller through the crowd, weaving between shoppers and streetlights, her free hand pressed to her Bluetooth earpiece, her words clipped and fast. Behind her, a small girl in a red puffer coat struggled to keep up. Her boots were mismatched, one zipped, the other dragging open. Her backpack bounced with each step, the zipper dangling like a broken tail. She clutched a half-eaten piece of sourdough bread in her mittened hand. Her name was Lucy Morgan. She was 7 years old and, at that moment, the only person on the street not watching a screen or checking the time. She stopped walking. She had seen him. It wasn't the way his fur was torn or the way his legs shook under his weight. It was his eyes. How they didn't even rise to meet her. How they seemed used to being overlooked. Lucy blinked. The bread in her hand grew colder by the second. Around her, people swirled like river currents, but she stood still, small and firm and quiet. The dog didn't move. 20 feet ahead, her mother noticed nothing. She was already halfway across the intersection, her voice rising in conversation, one hand waving. Lucy looked from the dog to her mother, then back to the dog. Her feet turned slowly toward the wall. She approached. Each step was deliberate, unsure, like she was trying not to scare a ghost. The crowd thinned slightly where the alley opened. Lucy crouched beside him, not too close. She placed the piece of bread on the sidewalk just far enough to keep her hand from brushing him. The dog's nose twitched. He didn't lift his head. He was used to being teased, used to food being taken away just before it touched his tongue. Lucy didn't say a word. Behind her, the flow of pedestrians faltered. A man in a beanie paused. A woman slowed her shopping cart and narrowed her eyes. A barista carrying a tray of coffees glanced sideways and nearly dropped them. It wasn't the girl they were staring at. It was the stillness, the way she crouched in the slush, so completely unaware of the city rushing around her. The dog sniffed again. He didn't growl, didn't flinch. He simply opened his eyes a little wider, enough to see the curve of her boot, the edge of her coat, the pink fuzz of the mittens resting in her lap. Slowly, his gaze crept upward. His body stayed low, his breath shallow, but something flickered behind his tired stare. Not trust, not yet, but maybe the echo of it. Lucy reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded napkin, then dabbed gently at the crust of her bread, brushing away crumbs as if offering something clean might make the moment feel more real. She slid it an inch closer. He blinked. Somewhere in the distance, a car honked. A man shouted across the street. But here, in this small forgotten pocket of the city, time folded. Lucy sat down, legs tucked beneath her, coat spread like a blanket. She leaned forward and whispered something that no one else heard. The dog did not respond, but he didn't recoil either. Ahead, her mother turned around and froze. Her lips parted, then pressed shut as she took a hesitant step back toward the corner. Her eyes moved between her daughter and the heap of fur and ribs beside her. She opened her mouth to call out, then stopped. The air shifted. People watched now, some with curiosity, others with unease. Someone lifted a phone. Another whispered, but no one interrupted, because they could see it too. The tiny girl, the broken dog, the space between them closing. It was Lucy who reached first. Her mitten hovered an inch above the matted fur. No one breathed. Even the dog tensed, his back twitching as if expecting pain. But her hand stayed gentle, slow, quiet in its intent. She didn't pet. She rested. Just a moment of contact. Just enough. The dog let out a breath so long it shivered through his ribs. He lowered his head, not in fear this time, but in surrender. And for the first time that day, maybe in months, he felt something close to peace. Lucy smiled. The sidewalk hadn't meant to hold its breath, but somehow it did. For a brief moment, the usual rush of the city faded, and something softer threaded its way into the noise. Something fragile and warm, like the air before a snowfall. Lucy stayed crouched beside the dog without flinching. Her tiny red coat pressed against the chill of the pavement, her mittens resting inches from the animal's matted fur. Behind her, the hum of people trying not to feel had fallen away, leaving a strange, brittle hush. Someone whispered from the crowd, perhaps out of fear, perhaps from instinct, but Lucy didn't hear them. She wasn't afraid. Not of the dirt, not of the smell, not even of the low growl that had rumbled earlier from the dog's cracked throat. She only saw the way his ribs rose and fell beneath the stained fur, like a paper-thin breath barely clinging on. The German shepherd hadn't moved much since the moment she approached. His body remained curled tightly against the brick, but there was something different in his stillness now. It wasn't resignation, it wasn't fear, it was pause. A long, questioning moment where trust tried to lift its head through the fog of everything that had broken him before. His eyes, sunken but golden beneath the grime, flicked between Lucy's hand and the half-eaten crust of bread she had laid down like an offering. He didn't touch it. Not yet. But for the first time in what must have been days, maybe weeks, he didn't turn away. Lucy's mother had reached her by then, breathless, knees buckling to the ground behind her daughter. She didn't scold, didn't yank, didn't shout. Something in her had caught the same stillness Lucy saw, the fragile weight of a dog that hadn't been touched with care in far too long. She placed a hesitant hand on Lucy's shoulder, as if anchoring her to the ground, just in case the spell shattered. The dog's ear flicked toward the sound, his head lifted, slowly, shakily, as if unsure whether he could or even should. And then it happened. That first real movement, a soft shift of weight forward, the scrape of paw against pavement. No bark, no whimper, just one weary step. The crowd had gathered in full by now. A blur of winter coats, curious eyes and hands unsure whether to clap or cover mouths. Most hadn't meant to stop. But now, something made them stay. A delivery driver stepped out from his van and leaned on the mirror. A woman with a cart full of groceries paused mid-aisle. Even the barista from across the street stood on tiptoe through the coffee shop window. Everyone had somewhere to be, yet none of them moved. Lucy extended her hand again. This time, it wasn't met with a growl. The dog's nose quivered. He sniffed once, then twice. And then, with all the hesitation of a heart still stitched with fear, he nudged his snout beneath her mitten. It wasn't quite a gesture of affection. Not yet. But it was surrender. A small, aching one. The kind that said, "I've known pain, but maybe not this time." Lucy's mother exhaled audibly, one hand now resting on the dog's back. She flinched slightly at how sharp his bones felt beneath her palm. The warmth was there, barely, but so was the neglect, etched into every thin inch of him. Somewhere behind them, a voice cut gently through the quiet. "Excuse me, I work with a rescue." A woman stepped forward from the outer rim of the onlookers. Her jacket bore a worn patch with a paw print faded by years of use. She looked down not just at the dog, but at Lucy, her eyes soft with something deeper than sympathy. Experience, maybe, recognition. "If you'll allow me," she said quietly, "I can take him in. We've got space, warmth, food, medical care." Lucy didn't answer. She only looked down at the German Shepherd again, her gaze so unwavering it seemed older than her years. The dog hadn't moved from her side, not even a twitch, as if he'd found something in her presence worth clinging to. The woman waited patiently. She didn't reach for the leash. She didn't press. She simply knelt and let the silence settle between them. Finally, Lucy nodded. Just once. Her mother lifted her gently, arms folding tight around her tiny frame. Lucy's face turned over her shoulder as the dog was coaxed to his feet. His legs shook, but he followed the rescue worker with the hesitant grace of someone who wasn't quite sure if this kindness was real, but wanted it to be. Before they reached the van, the dog stopped and looked back, just for a second. His eyes found Lucy's again, and his tail gave the faintest flickering wag. That night, the video went live. No music, no voiceover. Just 2 minutes of a little girl on a cold sidewalk, placing a crust of bread at the feet of a forgotten animal. By dawn, it had been shared by tens of thousands. Not for drama, not for applause, but because somehow, everyone who watched it felt the exact same stillness Lucy had felt. That quiet kind of heartbreak that reminds you compassion still exists. And somewhere in the back of a rescue van parked in the corner of the city, under soft blankets and warm lamplight, a dog who once had no name rested his head for the first time without flinching. The crust of bread she gave him lay uneaten by the corner of his kennel, as if he didn't need it anymore, not yet, because for the first time in forever, he wasn't starving for food. He was learning what it felt like to be seen. The veterinary room was quiet except for the rhythmic clicking of machines and the soft buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. The German Shepherd lay on a padded mat, his head resting on his front paws, eyes half-lidded with exhaustion. A pink compression bandage wrapped around one front leg where the IV line had just been removed. His breathing had steadied over the past few hours, though every rib still showed like ghosted bones beneath his fur. Lucy sat cross-legged on the floor beside him, her red jacket folded neatly on the chair behind her. In her lap was a sketchbook, smudged with graphite and fingerprints, where she'd drawn picture after picture of the dog. In one, he stood tall beneath a tree. In another, he was curled up with a sunbeam streaming across his back. None of them captured the hollowness in his eyes, but Lucy drew anyway. It was the only way she knew how to make sense of everything she'd felt since that moment on the sidewalk. A nurse peeked in, saw her there, and gave a small smile before slipping out again. No one had the heart to tell Lucy visiting hours had ended hours ago. No one wanted to break whatever bond was forming between a girl who didn't flinch and a dog who didn't trust. Earlier that day, Dr. Amos had gone over the medical report with Lucy's mom. Severe malnourishment, joint inflammation, soft tissue trauma consistent with long-term exposure to concrete and cold, and most importantly, textbook symptoms of canine PTSD. "He's a trauma case," the doctor had said softly, flipping the chart. "He'll need time, and more than anything, he'll need to feel safe again." Lucy hadn't said much. She had just nodded, then slipped back into the kennel room and taken her place beside him, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Hours passed. The sun outside lowered behind the rescue center's bare oak trees. Shadows stretched across the floor like long, tired arms. Lucy finally broke the silence with a whisper only the dog could hear. "You don't have a name yet. But I think I know what it is." The dog didn't move, but one ear flicked. She leaned closer. "Shadow. Because you were like a shadow on the sidewalk, like no one saw you, but I did." Her hand hovered near his paw, but didn't touch. She'd learned not to push. "And you followed me home, kind of, in a way that matters." The name lingered in the air like a promise. A naming was a claiming, even if no one said it out loud. She came back the next day, and the next. Each time, Shadow grew a little less still. At first, it was the way his eyes tracked her across the room. Then, it was a twitch of his tail when she spoke. By the end of the week, he no longer shrank from her touch. He let her brush the worst of the tangles from his fur. He sniffed her coat and wagged when he found the sleeve she'd dropped on the floor. And on the 8th day, when Lucy reached out with a half-eaten peanut butter cracker, Shadow took it gently from her palm and then did something no one expected. He leaned his head into her chest and stayed there. The staff watched from the observation window and said nothing. Some smiled. One wiped at her eyes. They knew animals that had given up. They knew the signs: the lowered head, the trembling limbs, the refusal to eat unless alone. But this was something else. This was return. This was resurrection. That evening, Lucy wrote a letter, not to Santa, not to the mayor, but to the rescue center director. It was written in her careful second-grade print with a purple gel pen. "Dear Miss Patty, my name is Lucy Morgan, and I want to help Shadow get better. He's not just a dog, he's someone. I want to be his part-time helper and come after school every day and help him not be scared. I know he remembers everything. I think I do too. Please let me. P.S. I don't care if I don't get paid. P.P.S. I named him Shadow because he followed me in his heart, not on his legs." She left it folded on the front desk with a piece of peppermint candy on top. 2 days later, her mom got a call. Lucy was officially approved as a junior volunteer with special permission to assist in Shadow's rehabilitation under staff supervision. She didn't stop smiling for the rest of the day. She started drawing new pictures, ones where Shadow had filled out again, with a shining coat and clear eyes. Ones where he stood beside a little girl who looked just like her, beneath a banner that said, "Home." Every time she came, she whispered the same words to him before she left. "I don't care if nobody wanted you. I want you. I'll wait till you're ready." One afternoon, after a long silence, Shadow nosed at her coat pocket and nudged a pencil free. It rolled across the floor. Lucy retrieved it and grinned. "You want me to draw you again?" Shadow didn't answer, but when she laid back on the mat to sketch, he lay beside her, his head resting gently against her ankle. And though neither said it, something between them had already changed. Not with words, not even with wagging tails or crayon drawings. It changed because Lucy didn't ask him to forget the pain. She simply promised to stay until the memory didn't hurt as much. And Shadow, slowly, silently, believed her. The rescue center had never been noisy, But since Shadow arrived, a certain quiet reverence had settled in its halls. It wasn't silence. Phones still rang, dogs still barked, volunteers still moved in and out, but there was a kind of hush that followed Lucy and her German shepherd wherever they went, as if everyone instinctively knew they were watching something more delicate than healing, something closer to trust being rebuilt grain by grain. Then the video surfaced. It had been recorded weeks ago by someone standing on that crowded sidewalk, back when Shadow was just a hunched figure against a brick wall and Lucy was the only person who dared kneel beside him. The footage was grainy, jerky, framed by a stranger's camera phone, but it didn't matter. What it captured was undeniable. A little girl offering a crust of bread, a dog too afraid to raise his head, and then a small, quiet moment that shifted everything. Lucy's hand resting gently on his back, her face unreadable, and Shadow's slow, almost painful lean into her. No one knew who uploaded it first, but once it was online, it moved like wind through dry grass. Local news anchors called it the moment that broke the city's heart. National blogs gave it headlines like "The Girl Who Saw the Forgotten" and "When Compassion Wore Red." Within 48 hours, the clip had racked up nearly 2 million views and sparked a wave of online donations to the Ashridge Animal Rescue Center. People wanted to help. They sent blankets, food, handwritten notes. One woman from Vermont mailed a quilt with a note saying, "For the dog who remembered how to hope." A second-grade class from Ohio sent drawings of Lucy and Shadow, each one scrawled with crooked hearts and stick figures. The rescue center, caught off guard by the attention, scrambled to adjust. Staff took turns managing the flood of emails. Reporters began calling daily. The front gate was suddenly lined with curious visitors hoping to catch a glimpse of the miracle pair. Lucy, meanwhile, didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did, but simply chose not to care. She still showed up after school every day, lunchbox in one hand and her sketchbook in the other. She'd greet Shadow softly, sit on the floor, and begin her quiet routine, grooming his fur, whispering whatever secrets children only tell animals, and drawing with her knees pulled to her chest. On the 10th day of the video's circulation, a local news team visited the shelter. They brought cameras, microphones, and a host eager to interview Lucy. She agreed, reluctantly, but only if they promised not to shine the light directly in Shadow's face. The footage aired that evening across several states. Lucy stood awkwardly beside Shadow, whose eyes had lost their skittish glaze and now followed her everywhere. The reporter asked her what she thought when she saw the dog. "I just thought he looked tired," Lucy said. "Not mean, just tired." "And why did you stop?" the reporter pushed. "I don't know," she said after a moment. "I think I saw him, really saw him, and I didn't want to be like everyone else." It wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't poetic, but it hit harder than any speech a grown-up could have written. It became the soundbite of the year. Her words were quoted in classrooms, printed on t-shirts, and turned into hashtags. More than that, it changed things. Lucy's school launched a student-led awareness project called Adopt, Don't Ignore, where children wrote essays and created posters about animals in shelters. The mayor of Ashridge called Lucy a young citizen of extraordinary empathy. A regional rescue coalition invited her to speak, though she turned it down, preferring to spend that afternoon brushing Shadow's fur. But perhaps the most important shift was the one happening quietly behind closed doors at the shelter. After weeks of medical care, routine meals, and daily affection, Shadow was no longer a rescue case. He was a companion. His fur had thickened and shone under the lights, his legs were stronger. His tail wagged often, especially when Lucy entered the room. And then, one evening, The director sat Lucy and her mom down in the front office. Shadow had passed all his evaluations. He was officially cleared for adoption. The woman behind the desk smiled warmly. "He's ready for a home, Lucy. The question is, are you ready to bring him there?" Lucy didn't answer immediately. Her eyes drifted to the doorway, where Shadow lay curled just out of sight, his ears perked toward the sound of her name. Her mom looked down at her, waiting. And then Lucy nodded, not frantically, not with a shout, but with a kind of quiet certainty that felt older than her years. That night, back in her room, Lucy sat cross-legged on the floor with her sketchbook open. She flipped past pages filled with shaky lines and half-drawn houses until she landed on the newest one. It showed a girl in a red coat walking beside a big dog with kind eyes. They stood in front of a little apartment building with a welcome mat shaped like a bone. Above them, in careful block letters, she wrote, "He wasn't mine because I took him. He was mine because I waited." And downstairs, curled up on a borrowed dog bed, Shadow finally slept without one ear open. The apartment wasn't large. A third-floor walk-up in a weathered brick building on Pine Street, with creaky steps and a crooked mailbox. But to Lucy, it was the most magical place in the world the night Shadow first stepped across the threshold. He paused at the door, uncertain. His paws lingered at the edge of the welcome mat, as if waiting for someone to change their mind. But no one did. Mrs. Morgan stood aside, her hand resting gently on Lucy's shoulder. The girl reached back, offering nothing but stillness. It was Shadow who crossed the final line, stepping quietly into the warmth of the home he didn't know he'd been waiting for. They had set up a corner for him by the radiator, soft fleece blankets folded into a makeshift bed, a stainless steel bowl already filled with clean water, and a chew toy shaped like a star that Lucy had picked out herself. The shepherd didn't rush to claim it. He circled once, twice, before lowering himself down slowly, joints stiff, but eyes alert. Lucy sat on the floor nearby, watching in silence. For the first time, there was no one else around. No cameras, no curious neighbors, no rescue volunteers, no nurses in scrubs. Just a girl and the dog she hadn't walked past. In the weeks that followed, the apartment softened around him. The dust on the bookshelves gave way to framed drawings Lucy made, crayon pictures of a big dog with kind eyes and stick-figure girls holding leashes. One had the caption in purple marker, "He didn't bark, he stayed." Shadow gained weight gradually. His ribs disappeared beneath a coat that, while still patchy in places, had begun to shine under the sun. The scars remained, some visible, some not, but the tremors at loud sounds faded. He slept deeply now, sometimes twitching in his dreams, but always waking to the smell of scrambled eggs or the jingle of Lucy's laugh. Lucy wrote an essay for school titled "Not All Heroes Roar." In it, she didn't mention herself. She wrote about a dog who waited, a dog the world ignored until someone remembered to look. Her teacher read it aloud at morning assembly. When the auditorium fell into that rare, reverent silence, Lucy only glanced at her shoes and tucked her hair behind her ear. Shadow waited for her outside the doors, head tilted, tail thumping once when he saw her come through. At night, Lucy read aloud to him from books she used to think were too grown up. She curled against his side as his breathing slowed to match hers. Sometimes she whispered secrets into the soft fur behind his ears. He didn't answer, but he never pulled away. In April, the school hosted a community event about compassion. The principal asked if Lucy would speak. She didn't want to at first. Too many eyes, too many lights. But her mother gently suggested she tell the truth, just the way she told it to Shadow every night. When the day came, Lucy stood behind the wooden podium in her red cardigan and sneakers. She didn't clear her throat or fidget. She just looked out at the crowd, then down at the dog sitting beside her feet. "I didn't save him," she said quietly. "He saved me from forgetting how to care." No one clapped at first. They didn't need to. What followed wasn't noise. It was the feeling of something shifting in a room, something that made people straighten their posture and blink too fast. That spring, Mrs. Morgan framed one of Lucy's drawings and hung it above the coat rack. It showed a girl in a red jacket and a big dog beside her on the sidewalk. The background was a swirl of gray crayon to mark the city, but in the center, between them, was a bright yellow heart. By summer, Shadow no longer flinched when delivery trucks passed. He had a favorite spot on the fire escape where he'd watch birds land on the rooftop garden next door. Lucy began teaching him tricks: paw, spin, stay, but mostly they just existed together, in the simple, sacred quiet of the life they'd made. One night, Lucy asked her mom if she thought Shadow remembered the street, the cold, the people who walked by. Her mother didn't know, but when Shadow shifted in his sleep and nudged closer, Lucy decided it didn't matter. What mattered was this: when she walked through that crowd, she didn't know what would happen. She just knew someone had to stop. And that stopping wasn't weakness. It was how everything started. On the wall behind the couch, under the framed drawing, was a handwritten note in pencil. Lucy had taped it up the day they brought Shadow home. It said, "She didn't walk past. She stayed." That night, as the wind moved gently through the open windows and the city lights blinked like distant fireflies, the girl who saw him and the dog who waited fell asleep side by side, not as a rescue story, just as family.